at the end of all that, I'd say one thing when the doctor says, do not take any more x-rays the rest of your life. You got so much radiation in you. You should never have x-rays again. But they didn't know what to do. And I knew that I was healed. But it wasn't completely, healed. I didn't have the broken bones. I knew it. So when they went, they said, we don't know what to do, so we're going to go in and get all the glass out of your legs. And I said, and they go, do you want to numb your legs? I said, no, man, I'm fine. All of a sudden, I hear them going, okay, suture, or whatever, what need to sew. I'm going, wait a minute, you're that deep? I'm going, time out. Would you guys do something? I was afraid to go under because I thought I would leave this world again.
Oh. Dave, it's so good to see you. I flew in last night and I was like, this is one of the episodes that I was most looking forward to. You're one of my dearest friends, and obviously we know each other really well. And you have one of the most fascinating stories that could fill volumes, just in terms of your career, but your faith journey is really special. And so whether we ever get to that, you were a professional tennis player and, an actor and all the accolades, coaching, major coaching of Major League Baseball players and other football players, Olympians, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, all the things. You've got such a resume that I haven't even close to touch the surface because your stories are absolutely incredible. But your faith journey is one of those that is inspirational. And I think that we owe it, to each other to celebrate our faith journey and to inspire people who might be seeking or seeing like, hey, what else could there be in my life? Not that anyone's going to do what you did or in the way that you did it, right? Everyone's journey is unique. But yours started in a really unusual way. So give us that.
I grew up in a Christian family, as you know. My dad was a Navy chaplain. And first of all, before we even go into that, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share something with you. We've had so many incredible conversations that have lifted both our lives. I feel I am a better father. I'm a better husband because of some of our conversations. And that's very, very vital to me. It doesn't matter whatever the resume is. If I can every day improve my relationship with God, it's just such a great way to be. But it started with a father that was a Navy chaplain. You've heard the story, and I love the story, but at Iwo Jima, it's such a bloody battle. So many people lost their lives there. And, the first wave went in. It was brutal. And then the second wave went in, and then the third wave. And finally, after 6 different waves of troops coming in, it was time. They finally cleared the beaches, and the admiral goes, "Where's Chaplain Austin? It's time to go to shore." And a sailor came up and said, "Sir," he was on the very first boat this morning, "my dad led the charge at Iwo Jima without a weapon, with a big cross in his helmet."
Wow. And
like, "Dad, why?" He never talked about it until at his retirement, an admiral talked about the story. And we said, "Dad, why?" He goes, "Well, that's where I was needed most. I love God and I love my Marines." And so he was so driven that he could take on machine gun fire for what he believed. And I'm thinking, wow, I don't think I could take on machine gun fire for what I believe. Can I take on the scorn of another person's word? Maybe that's something, that's even hard to do, right? So that's where it started. But when I remember in college, I questioned, what is my faith? Because I had so many, when you finally leave the nest egg, so to speak, and you go to college, you get a lot of different things coming at you. And I'm like, where is my faith in all this? How does it really fit? I had so many questions. And then I was in a horrific car accident. I was thrown out of the car. The car came down and landed on top of me. I'm blessed to be alive. But I had that moment.
So the car's on you. Where on you?
I was lying on the pavement, and the car was from about my butt down, or
to your feet.
Yeah, all my legs were under the car.
Okay.
And I had never heard anything about an out-of-body experience, and it's something that I didn't think really fit my faith. Because I was very, I would say, more rigid in my faith and not understanding all that God can create in our lives. I think I was more, okay, this is where I have to be. This thought of actually transferring over to the other side, that's kind of, out there. But, as I was laying there, all of a sudden, I found myself up above the body, looking down and going, oh my gosh, that physical body. And it was like nature took on a different form of life. It was like going, hey, we've seen these people come and go. I'm going, oh my gosh, this is just a moment in time when you think of the eternity of time. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm going, that's just a physical body. So this is only for a moment in the eternity of time. And I remember I had a choice and I fought for that choice. I said, I'm not done here with my life. I think there's more that I need to accomplish. And I promise you, I will go and be that. So all of a sudden, I found myself in my body. And all of a sudden, oh my God, it was so much pain. And I was screaming. And I'm going, wait a minute, oh gosh, did I really want to do this? Maybe I would need to go back. And all of a sudden, I acted as a doorstep. The car would have slid off a cliff. But fortunately, the way I was, the car didn't go off the cliff. So I saved the others in the car. Even though they were in the car, the way I was and having it on me, it gave a way for them to escape out the other side.
Wow.
So it was really amazing. The blessing. I saved 3 other people's lives. I didn't do it by choice. Like when I was flying in the air, I remember flying in the air and looking up and going, "Oh my God, that car looks
like and literally flying when the accident happened.
Yeah.
Your body is actually
I'm actually flying,
not in the out of body.
But I didn't have a cape. I wish I had a cape. But I looked up. I remember it was like slow motion. I went, "Oh my God, that car looks heavy." Sure enough, it was heavy because when I landed, it landed on top of me, and so. These 2 gals came and tried to pull me out. They couldn't get me out. I was stuck. And I was like, because I had all this training in first aid. I'm going, you got to stop the bleeding. I'm going to die if you don't stop the bleeding. Because I could hear or I could feel blood just squirting out of my legs to my, and I'm going like, I only have so much time. Get this thing off. I'm trying to direct them. And they're going, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And then more people started showing up. And they finally, they cut down a tree and they got the tree under there. And then enough people, it actually dropped on me 5 times before they finally got me out. So it was, so when they pulled me out.
And you could feel, it wasn't like you lost feeling.
I didn't lose feeling at all.
That.
I'm going, wait, I'd heard these stories of these dramatic things where, they didn't feel anything. I'm going, God, why can't I have that? I felt everything. I mean, I was truly alive, and so when the ambulance showed up, these 2 girls are going, oh, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And so then when the ambulance shows up, these 2 girls start crying, going, you can't do him. Oh my God, he's horrible. I'm going, oh, I didn't want to look. They can't be talking about me. And then they come running over me with the stretcher. I'm going, oh gosh, it's me they're talking about. Okay, so I get in the ambulance, and the other 3 guys are fine because of the way it all landed, and I acted as a doorstep. The driver had his arm out, so it got mangled. But out of all that, that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And when they got to the hospital, it was one of those things where, oh my God, I need my legs to do what I do. I know that was kind of funny to think that because they told me my legs were broken in many places. I was bleeding internally.
And they had taken x-rays or something, right?
They looked, they not yet.
Okay, not yet.
So then, when my dad and mom showed up, my dad was a Navy chaplain at the time at Oak Knoll Naval Hospital.
Okay.
We decided that's where all where Vietnam War was going on at the time. And that's where they bring in all those, they fly them in from Vietnam when they've lost a limb or, been in a dramatic thing like this. So they transfer me to the hospital. And in the hospital ride, I had this conversation with God. I mean, I can remember it because I'd never been open to having having a conversation with your maker, with your creator. I mean, that was far-fetched for me. But because of the experience I had out of my body, I had a new relationship, let's say. And so I knew it was possible. I said, look, I know I agreed to come back, but I know as an athlete, my legs are going to be important in my mission. I need my legs because they had pretty much said, that was going to be history. There was a miracle that took place in the ambulance. When we showed up at the other hospital, they had everybody ready. They all rushed me out. They knew this was a very, tough situation. I'm laughing. I'm going, hey guys, how you doing? They're going, wait a minute, is this the right guy? Because I already knew the miracle took place.
Could you feel the miracle taking place? Because the miracle is your legs healed. What, right? At that moment?
But they were still, I just knew that I would get through it.
You'd get through it, okay.
I think that was it. And so when they rushed me in, they started taking x-rays and they're going, wait a minute, we don't find any broken bones. They kept calling the other hospital. They're going, yeah, he's got broken bones. So they kept taking x-rays and they're going, we can't find any broken bones.
Wow.
And you know, at the end of all that, I'd say one thing when a doctor says, do not take any more x-rays the rest of your life. You got so much radiation in you, you should never have x-rays again. But they didn't know what to do. And I knew that I was healed. But it wasn't completely, say, healed. I mean, I didn't have the broken bones. I knew so when they went, they said, we don't know what to do, so we're going to go in and get all the glass out of your legs. And I said, and they go, do you want to numb your legs? I said, no, man, I'm fine. All of a sudden, I hear them going, okay, stretcher or whatever, you know what need to. So I'm going, wait a minute, you're that deep? I'm going, time out. Would you guys do something? I was afraid to go under because I thought I would leave this world again.
Oh.
So I didn't want to have anything that would take me out of my consciousness.
Okay.
I don't even know why that happened, but I just was so strong in that. So I actually then they gave me something to bite on. And I just bit as they were sewing me up in all parts of my leg. And then they were going to keep me in the hospital.
Tough 18-year-old. You're a tough 18-year-old, right? 18?
19.
19. The tough 19-year-old.
19-year-old. I'm biting this thing and oh my God.
I don't know many 19-year-olds that would have done that.
There was something, I don't know why. I said, if you put me under, I remember saying, do not put me under because I won't be back. I don't know why. It's just what it was. But I now knew, there's a knowing that took place. And then they were going to keep me in the hospital. I said, I can't stay in the hospital. I said, what? Well, my parents had a station wagon at the time, and so they stretched me out and said, all right, but come back in tomorrow morning. For some reason, I just needed to be home. And my family helped me get into my bed at home. The next morning, I went to the hospital. I couldn't use my legs, but I knew they would heal. I just knew they would heal. But my left leg was really banged up bad. And so I was on crutches for at least 3 or 4 months. And I was, had a scholarship to play football and baseball in college. Well, I just couldn't heal in time for football. I was going to be the starting quarterback. And sports was such a huge part of my life. And I knew that it would still be part of my life, but now I was on a mission because I made a commitment at that moment to come back in, that I was going to take a journey of understanding that there's a reason I'm alive, and I need to make the most of that reason. Whatever that reason is, not even knowing it completely,
right?
But just being aware and thinking of my dad's words. That's where I was needed most. I thought, okay, where am I needed most? So I did, took a long time to heal, but I healed up enough, and I played baseball that year, my sophomore year in college. And I wasn't as, say, outstanding as I always was used to being because I didn't get all the practice time in. I didn't even get movement until the first day of practice, where normally I'm a workaholic. I'd be out there every day before anybody else getting better. So I transferred schools to San Diego State and decided to be a walk-on in tennis because I felt like, I'd been playing tennis to rehabilitate myself. But to think about playing D1 tennis is kind of crazy. But I was so driven that not only did I then make the tennis team, end up getting a scholarship, then going on to play on the world tour and becoming a world-ranked tennis player. Knowing that was just a part of my journey, knowing that was just something that would help me have a platform, I guess you would call it, without even understanding what a platform is.
Let's pause there because there's a few parts to this story, and you set this up really well. And by the way, I want to point out for anyone who's listening, because that opening story with your dad is even more incredible, I think, than how I heard you just share it, because there's a famous photo of the soldiers raising the flag that we have all got embellished or emblazoned into our memories. And your dad was there praying, right? At the foot of that.
Here's the truth of that. Originally, machine gun fire is still going off. And so a really dangerous, group of guys, we're going to go up. They said, get up there. Let's put the American flag up there. My dad said, I got to go with you. Again, that was just my dad.
Yeah.
So he went up with them. Why machine gun fire is going off? And so as they're putting up the first flag, machine gun fire is going off. He was on his belly on those rocks, and he felt like it was also not just putting up the flag for our freedom, but communion, to bring our faith to our freedom.
Yes.
And so
that's it, because it's like the prayer is so powerful, right? And communion is so powerful, and the Bible, and there he is in the midst of all that, leading the charge. Right there, machine gun fire. Just imagine the chaos that might have been going on. And there's your dad, like, what would possess someone to do that? Like, what faith to be able to go in there and just be okay with whatever the outcome was going to be, and just know that that's, like you said, where he was needed most. And he showed up.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they finally, got the flag up, and he gave them communion. And finally they took over the hill, and machine gun, finally they had it. And a Marine general said, let's put a bigger flag here. So they staged that symbol of our freedom. And Rosenthal, the photographer who became famous because of that picture, well, my dad was a photo buff, so he helped line up the shot for him.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So that was a reenactment shot.
Yeah, that was a reenactment.
Yes.
Yeah, so
okay.
There was no gunfire going on. It was just these 5 guys who became famous that couldn't handle, this is very interesting, if you really study what happened to them, they couldn't handle their fame because they said, hey, we just got chosen. We didn't take on the bullets.
They were just
at
in
that
the photo.
time. They were just there, and they had a hard time, and there's a lot of sadness to their lives because they became such heroes and they didn't feel like heroes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a whole nother story, but my dad was there in faith, and it's a faith that today, it's an interesting comment I'm going to make that haunts me. I mean, you think of haunting, but it haunts me to say, Dave, can you take this on? Dad took on machine gun fire for what he believed. Can you take this on? Can you make this statement that you believe is truth? You might find out that it's not next week, but you're always open to hear God's voice.
Well, and I want to shift to that because your dad set the tone, but it didn't stop there. I mean, your faith is one of the most, you and Kathy, your wife, you have some of the deepest faith that I've ever seen. And you've taught me a lot. And we're going to get to some of that, later. But right now, let's focus on something that I know is one of those pivotal moments for your faith, the story of your son, and you have multiple sons, but the story of your youngest son, because that is going to, I think, help people realize, like, okay, this is deep legacy faith, right? And I want to encourage people, like, hey, if you didn't come from this kind of faith strength, it's okay. You can start today. But listen to Dave's story here. It's incredible to see just how deep of a faith this is for him to do something so radical, so unprecedented in medicine, frankly, that it's just wow is the key word. Wow. So let's hear it.
But in all honesty, I want everyone to hear something. I fought this faith. Even after all that, I felt like it would be weird if people knew that I'd gone to the other side, because I didn't know anything about that near-death experience. I tried to stay away from it because I didn't know if that really met does that fit who I am? I don't know. So I was afraid to share it. So there was a lot of still a journey, and life is always a journey. And there's still part of that journey I'm going forth with, right? We never end. It's like, we brush our teeth every day. I try to bring my faith every day. It's not like, okay, I had my faith yesterday. I don't need it today. I need it every day in every decision I make. So it wasn't until, at 19, I had the out-of-body experience. It wasn't until 19 years later when I was with Kathy. She was the first one I ever told. I felt comfortable enough to finally share. I wouldn't even share it with my family because I thought they would think I'm weird that I had this. They all knew about the miracle, but they all kind of like, oh, I don't know, it's just a miracle. But they didn't know the depth of the miracle. So with that said, started living my life differently, even more of what happened was I was on a flight to Germany. At the time, I had a trademark with the ATP Tour, and I had products in that with the Pro Tour, and I was going over to sell
tennis tour.
Right, tennis tour. Sorry, to sell my German rights to a German company. And on the flight, this voice just started speaking to me. And I'm going, what is this? And I decided to dictate it. I had this pad of paper, and I went, and it's a 9.5-hour flight. I wrote the entire 9.5 hours. I filled up a whole big legal size pad. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know what it was. So I got to Germany, and in the middle of the night, I woke up again. I was just compelled to write again with this voice. What is this voice? What is this? I started writing again. Then I had the meetings. The meetings ended up being really positive. It was a very solid, from a business standpoint. But on the flight home, I said, let me read this, see what's going on here. I went, oh my goodness. Do I share this with anybody? It was Jesus speaking to me. It said, Jesus, I am here. Go ahead. And I'm like, what does this mean?
Wow.
And so, there was a lot of resistance in me because of my faith. Is this fit it or does it not fit it? It was a new territory. Anytime you're introduced something new, you should question it.
Sure,
You should value it. You should look at it. Is this a dark element or is this a light element? But when I started reading the message, it was so good. It was so powerful. And I came home and I thought, Kathy and I share everything with, everything. We don't keep any secrets from each other that I know of. And I was going to keep this secret because I'm like, this is too weird. And I shared it with her and she goes, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing I've ever heard in my life. She goes, you got to share it with Jan. Now, who's Jan? Jan is someone we have met who does something called automatic writing or spiritual writing, that she listens to this voice and writes.
Yeah. This is a common thing, by the way. If you look through history, Saint Teresa of Avila, she was known to kind of be, they called it a trance. She'd be in a trance and she'd be writing, and God would be essentially writing through her. This is a very known thing, from a Christian standpoint, that Jesus will talk to us, right? And in a way that we can receive it. And you, obviously, something was opened up with that accident or what have you, or, but you were starting to receive these messages from Jesus.
Yeah, and I didn't know all the things you just talked about. That wasn't part of it. So I was questioning, am I going off? Do I need to be put into a padded room somewhere? That was my first thought.
It probably wouldn't have been too far of a reach for people to go there, because so many people are uncomfortable, especially then, with some of the faith related things. But keep going.
So she says, got to tell Jan. I'm going, I'm telling Jan. And she goes, oh yeah, you are. You got to read this to her. So I read to her, because my wife really, I guess, wears the pants in the family. and Jan goes, oh my God, that's the clearest message I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard anybody receive something this clear. She goes, will you write for me? I'm like, wait a minute. No, we pay you to write for us. But, after a couple of years of that, Jan unfortunately passed away, and they're having their memorial service, and Kathy and I and my boys, we were going to it, and we were caught up in traffic and we're late. I'm going, oh gosh. And I'm thinking, if they ask someone to speak, do I have the courage to say something? No, I don't, because there was all these mystics and psychics in the room that were well-known and famous, right?
Okay.
I'm the last person. I'm not well-known and famous, and I'm not going to talk. And they're going, yes, you are. I'm going, oh, I don't know. So we get there late, and her brother's standing outside where they're having the service. He goes, oh, thank God you're here. We've been waiting. Why are you waiting for me? This is strange. She says, because you're leading the service. I'm going, what? Oh,
what's happening with my life here,
what's
right?
happening here? So I go up there, and I say, Lord, just guide me. I've never done this before. I have no clue what I'm doing, but just pass words that are meaningful through me. I did that. And all of a sudden, all these famous mystics, they all wanted to know me. They all wanted to work with me. And I'm going, no. You don't get it. I'm not part of this. I don't know what's going on. I'm just allowing it to take place, and I'm just learning as I go.
Yeah.
And this is what's leading up to Daniel.
Daniel happened after the unfinished cross or before?
No, before.
Okay. So
that's what created the unfinished cross.
Okay, so we'll get to the unfinished cross, which is incredible, in just a minute. But so let's hear it. So how did the Daniel thing come? Kathy's pregnant.
Kathy's pregnant, and there was concerns because he hadn't moved in a while, and she was, he was going to be delivered in about 6 weeks. But there was some concern. Something wasn't right. And I went off to the College World Series in Omaha, but I usually, I was working with, God, now I forget the name of the company, but one of the biggest companies, as far as products in the grocery stores. But so I was going to do consulting with them and go to the College World Series. So I'm back there for that, and I get the call. Or actually, it was something that my buzzer went off before we had cell phones.
Yeah.
And I went to a payphone. Remember all those days?
I do.
See, that shows you the difference in advancement that takes place in life. We're always advancing in something. And so I called, and it was a message from Kathy saying there was concerns. So they've taken me to another hospital that has more prenatal, stuff. And she goes, so make arrangements for Shane's All-Star game tonight. Well, Shane was in Little League at the time. And I'm going, wait a minute, this is early in the morning. It was 12 o'clock Omaha time, but 10 o'clock in California. And she's telling me to make arrangements for a 7 o'clock game. Like, she's making it sound not that bad. I'm going, So I called our doctor, who was a very funny guy. I needed him. He was a really close friend. And I'm expecting him to lift me up. And he comes on and he's crying. I was not expecting that. And he says, Dave, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is serious. And then he told me there's really no chance for Daniel, and I could be losing Kathy.
Wow.
Everything just drained out of me. And I was there for a lunch with this company, and the CEO came over and goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "No." And he says, "Well, your lunch is served." I said, "I can't eat. I need to go home." So I went out, and I'd learned to pray differently than I used to pray. I prayed in saying, "Lord, give me the strength to endure whatever comes. I know your healing grace is here, but help me have the strength to bring something to this." And so it was more of a prayer of surrender. And so I got the next flight out. I flew home. And the last thing the doctor had said is that Daniel would have to come out in the next 3 or 4 days to save Kathy. And on the plane, because now I'm riding with Jesus, Jesus said he needs to come out tonight. But he'll be a true life miracle. He will be proof, if you need any more proof, of the strength of miracles that can take place in your faith, the power to move a mountain with a mustard seed.
Right.
And I did this whole writing on the plane going, okay, every writing I've done with Jesus has been incredibly accurate, but this is life. This is on the line. So how do I get back to LA where we're flying into and tell the doctor that God told me it had to be tonight? I'm like, I don't know. Do I have the strength to do that? But
because doctors aren't going to, they're going to be like,
Right.
who is this guy? Like, what are you
Right.
thinking? Even though he's a friend.
Well, we land and my buzzer went off again. And I went to the payphone and I called and it was Kathy going, they've decided they need to move me. That's when I learned that they need to move me to this other hospital, and they decided it has to be tonight. I went, oh my God.
Good.
Thank you, God. You're speaking to all. I don't have to do it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. But I noticed when we flew over the 405 freeway, when you come into LAX, it was a parking lot because it was like 5 o'clock at night. And so it was just all the traffic. And I went, what do I do? He said, take the coast route. So I went, okay. But I have no idea where this hospital is in Oxnard. So I'm driving as fast as I can because Kathy said it's going to happen at 7:20. And I'm trying to get there. And somehow it was really weird with the traffic. I was just flying through it. But then, we didn't have GPS back then. We now have learned, you and I, we have an internal GPS.
Right.
We didn't have one on our phone. And I'm thinking, I got to stop at a gas station to get a map. But I thought if I stop at a gas station, I'll miss the 27 mark, trying to figure it out. And God just led me. I just like, wait a minute, that's the hospital. I just drove right into where the hospital was. Yeah. It was like, oh, I didn't have to stop. It's right here. I hopped out of the car.
You're like those animals that get like moved far away from home. They're miles from home, and somehow they navigate their way back.
So I run in there. I get in there, and they scrub me and get all the stuff in to go into. We're having an emergency C-section to take Daniel out. And the doctors, there were 5 specialists, and there were a lot of nurses, but 5 doctors, pulled me into the hallway. Because when I got in there, I hear Kathy goes, guys, we got this. This is going to be fine. She was such a pillar of strength. I'm going, I changed instantly. I was crying the whole way, shook as I could be. And the moment I heard her strength, I went, yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
We have got this. And so they pulled me out in the hallway and they said, hey, look, your wife doesn't get it. She doesn't understand how serious this is. She doesn't understand. I said, hey, guys, we got this. And they rolled their eyes going, this couple are crazy. They're crazy. I said, great, we'll be crazy then. So we go in, they pulled Daniel out, and Daniel's deep purple, all deformed. And I've never seen a baby look like this, and very, very small. And they pull him over, but I'm with Kathy because they've already told me that he's not going to make it, and that I felt like I need to be with Kathy. And Kathy just goes, Dave, I'm fine. Go save our child. Okay. So what does that mean? I walk over and I get about halfway there, and all of a sudden I stop like, oh, these guys are going to think I'm crazy because I'm going to do a hands-on. And I started.
Had you ever done a hands-on before?
No.
First time ever.
First time ever.
In front of
That's
everybody.
What Jesus was saying. You're going to do a hands-on. I'm going, no. And I thought about it for a moment. I'm going, think about it in life. how we let others dictate who we are.
Absolutely.
I stopped
At
because I
times.
thought they'd think I'm crazy. And I heard my dad say, I took on machine gun fire for what I believed. What are you willing to do? Ooh. And then, Joan of Arc, I know this gets a little comes and says, I took on the fire for what I believed. I went,
So you're getting a lot of support. It's a lot of
I'm
spiritual,
getting a lot of spiritual support. I'm going, okay, baby.
It's like, Dave, you're on.
I'm on. I go in, I put my hand on Daniel's little leg, and they've given up. They had a oxygen mask, but they've given up. No life. He's gone. Put my hand on Daniel's leg, and I said, Daniel, I want you to feel my love.
Now, did you say that out loud? Or
I said it out loud.
You did? Okay.
I want you to feel my love. I want you to feel God's healing grace.
Ah,
And it was
what a
like
blessing.
an electric shock. He came to life. And he opened his eyes. And I'll never forget this. It was a memory will always be etched in my memory. His eyes opened up, looked at me in the eyes, and I saw this look of, we got this, Dad. And then he went back into a coma. So then they rushed him to intensive care. And I went in there, and they've got doing all this kind of stuff. And one of the doctors came to him. He said, we do not understand what just took place. We don't get it, but just know he won't make it through the night. Whatever just happened. And when he said that, Daniel flinched for a second and moved. I went, that's a sign. I said, I don't know medicine. I don't. I'm not a doctor. You guys know medicine, but I know faith. And that's a sign. And we're going to live on that faith. And he looked at me like, you're freaking off in la la land. So that night.
Good for you, by the way. So many of us have been with doctors who are well-meaning. They're good people, but they've been trained to do a certain thing.
Right.
Like if you're trained to do a certain thing and you have enough experiences that show like, hey, this is kind of nutty. Okay, you can live in la la land, but they've seen it work the other way consistently. And so I don't have as much frustration as I used to. And when I think about that, I just feel compassion, like, oh, what a gift that you're giving to the medical community by standing in your faith. If we stand in our faith, if we stand with God in those moments, then the people around us who experience it, they're going to have their own experience. But it's not our responsibility for their experience if we're standing with God. And that's what I'm hearing you say is you stood, by whatever means, Kathy saying what she said, you taking that first action, but to fly in the face of opposition, really, you stood with it. And so I can't wait for people to hear the rest of the story because it just gets better.
Well, it's funny. It took as I think about it, just took a lot of courage. But, courage is in the absence of fear. I had a lot of fear. I was scared. But courage is how you deal with that and how you pass through that in faith. And I just knew that was an anchor I needed to be in. Without that, I knew that Daniel would pass. I knew that.
Yeah.
There was no doubt in my mind. I knew I had to be so present, and I knew I had been given this gift. I needed to use every aspect and say, Jesus, what do I do now? What do I do now?
And we all have this gift. We can all connect.
Yes.
We can
Amen.
all connect with Jesus.
Amen.
Right? This is your experience with it, and everyone's going to have their own experience with it, but I want everyone to know that we all have the power to pray. We all have the power to be in that presence. And in that presence, as you just mentioned, it doesn't mean that every last vestige of fear is gone before we take the courageous step. In taking the courageous step, fear falls away.
Yes.
Right? Because we're moving with and into that depth of God's love and light.
And I think that's such an important message you just said that, I don't feel like I'm unique that I'm able to do this. I think everyone can. And I don't want anybody to have to go through a car accident, a child that's life is on the line to step into it fuller. I hope that a message like this leads you today to step into it fuller, knowing that this is a real story. This isn't a made up story. This is real. And knowing that can happen, then hopefully it gives you more courage, as I have to deal with it all the time in that courage of faith.
Absolutely. And let's get back to, so Daniel's there.
He's there,
The
and
nurses are running around.
So the first night, I just asked Jesus, what do I do? Well, he has no brain waves. Well, let's create brain waves. Put my hand on his head, and through the night prayed for him to create brainwaves. Next day, this miracle happened.
Now, do you feel you're doing that, or God's doing
God's
it through
doing
you?
it. I feel like I could feel Jesus right with me. He
Okay.
was just a part of me. Oh God,
Yeah.
no, it was not me. I was just a vessel. I could see
it,
and
yeah.
feel his love, and I was focused on that. It's like stepping on, the Sea of Galilee and like walking on water. And I knew if I took my eyes off of Jesus, this thing was gone. This was gone.
Good.
So I was just like,
So you just put your hands there, and it's
put my
not like
hand-
you did a prayer or anything. You just put your hands there, and it just happened.
I was just feeling his love
Okay.
come through me. I was just feeling his strength come through my very existence, because I'd had that relationship when I was in the out of body to where I was one with him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I knew that was possible. And so the next day, they this miracle, they like, there's brainwaves. How's this happening? And then he was so deformed, and it was like he's going to be deformed his whole life. And so the next night, all I did was focus on his limbs and everything. And the next day he could move, and he no longer had, all the deformities. I mean, I know this is crazy, but it took so much of being present in that connection. And again, I want to go, anybody can do it, but what are you willing to go through to get there?
Yeah.
I became a world-class tennis player because of the losses and the challenges I had to get to a world class. Well, with faith is something we'll test us every day.
Yeah, it grows. It starts
Every
small,
day.
and it can grow over
and
time.
It can grow.
You got to feed it.
Yeah, you got to feed it. So, that miracle took place. So 5 days of miracle after miracle after miracle, we get called into a conference call, and a doctor we've never met. He's this German gentleman, very nice man, but he talks in a very deep voice. And he said, we must take him off the life support because we don't think it's fair for a child to be on life support their whole life. Kathy and I looked at each other. We don't either. He goes, well, you know what that means, don't you? I said, absolutely, we know what it means. Another miracle. He goes, well, he won't be able to swallow. I said, all right, we'll see. But I did feel like Daniel wasn't meant to be on a life support his whole life.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was his journey and purpose to be here. I felt like there was something more, and we needed to stay in it. So they took him off the life support, and the nurses, I went, they had a little baby drop thing, or like you're going to feed a
bird.
A bird, yeah. And so they couldn't get him to swallow. So it looked like, what the doctors knew was right. He wasn't capable of swallowing. And I said, just keep the faith. Let's just keep with it. And I was just, Kathy says that's where my performance coaching started, was in that hospital room. And so all of a sudden he swallowed one drop. We cheered. You two would have thought we won the Super Bowl, baby. We were all just going crazy.
Woo!
And I said, okay, next feeding, we're going for 2. We're going for two. And the next feeding, he got 2 drops that he swallowed.
Oh.
And so it was a journey, one drop at a time. And after several days, which they thought he'd never come out of intensive care, they go, take him home. We don't know what to do with him. And so when we went in, it's like, I saw one of the doctors, and I said, is this incredible? He couldn't find it. It was just hard because medically, it didn't make any sense to him. Nothing medically fit for him. So I followed him to his office. I said, hey, this is such a wonderful thing. And he goes, and he was so just distraught, actually. He goes, it's not possible. And something he told me that I had not known. He goes, with the pH level, and I'm trying to remember the numbers. I might be off, but it was like if it's 3.1, could be 6.1. I can't remember exactly, but whatever. He said they would live it as a vegetable their whole life. He wasn't even that. You can't sustain life with his pH level. That's impossible. And so he was really troubled by it. And I just said, I can live with a miracle. Can you? And so I want to end one little thing because I know you got something to add. I came out and the nurses were so incredible. And this one nurse came to me and says, I've been in intensive care for 27 years. I have never witnessed anything like this in my life. I've never seen, this is the most glorious thing I've ever seen. We took Daniel home that day.
This is not for comparison purposes. It's for you listening and watching. If you have a doctor out there who doesn't believe what you believe, again, it doesn't make them bad people, but you got to find people who do believe what you believe, or stand firm in your belief. because I went through the same thing.
I know you did.
I
That's why we connected so much, because I know.
Yeah, I had a psychiatrist who said, your brain is like a motherboard that needs to be held together by this medicine, which is the glue. And if you don't have it, boom. And it's like, I've been off that stuff since 2015. And I'm not saying that no one should be on it, but he believed there was no other way. And so it was like, okay, I had to find someone who believed what I believed. And so I encourage people all the time, if a doctor says something, just trust that it's an opinion. It's their opinion based on their experience. You got to check in with yourself, right? And then allow for that to be your true north. Allow for God to guide you. And if you open up and say, maybe they're right, okay, well, maybe they're right, but what if they're wrong?
Yeah.
What if there's another way? And God gave you a way that really is inspiring for anyone who has ever been in a medical condition where they're told, like, hey, this is terminal, this is forever. It's like, well, maybe, but God has never, ever, in all the readings, in all the history that I've had growing up in Catholic schools and understanding from that perspective, and then going through my own faith journey and realizing, like, wait, everything is possible. Like, there really is not a thing that is impossible from the things that I've heard that are true stories. It's like, okay, everything's possible. If God wants to have it happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I want to give something of real credit to those doctors. Even with the disbelief of that this is possible, Daniel would not be alive if it wasn't for them also. They did remarkable things to help it. Even if they had to stay within what they knew, that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. But I just brought another element to it. But without them, I don't know, because, I don't know if it could have worked. They needed to do what they knew what to do.
And my story is the same.
I believe it was a combination of what we did together.
Yeah.
That created Daniel to be 27 years old today, alive and thriving.
Well, I mean, he's kind of a dude, right? I mean, everybody loves Daniel. There's lots of stories of,
miracles,
major miracles happening just by looking in Daniel's eyes. Like, I mean, and we won't get into all those right now, but I want to shift, and we're going to end this episode, but we're going to actually continue and tell, I think, a story that stretches both of us in a project that we did together and allowed for my faith to grow beyond anything that I could have comprehended I ever would have been in. Because I was a really insecure prayer and faith guy until we went through this experience. So we're going to do that next.
Can I do one more last thing here?
Sure.
Is it all right? You
Close
mentioned
it out.
The Unfinished Cross.
Yeah.
I would have never written that book if it wasn't for Daniel. That's what motivated me to say, this story is so powerful, no one knows it other than I know it. And so I decided I needed to share it, but I was scared to death doing that. I had never written a book or anything like that. So I shared the writings from Jesus, and I shared one chapter, the Daniel story, which it became a bestseller. It motivated people to see that maybe we could have a different relationship with Jesus. And that's, what was a scary thing, because I don't know how people are going to accept this, but 5 years after the book came out, it was a bestseller. A Hollywood producer had read it, and it was the story of Daniel that they said, we want to take it and make a TV special out of this. And it happened to be his birthday when I got the email. I'm going, oh my, 5 years old. And I'm going, oh my. And I said, yes, that's a message. So when they're filming it, they had all the doctors. This is the funny story, is that they're telling about how dramatic everything was and all this. And Kath and I looked at each other and we went, oh my God, we were in denial.
But probably for good measure.
Well, yeah.
Right?
You remember the story started about you guys are in denial.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear half the stuff 5 years later they're saying of why this couldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I'm going, sometimes it's not bad to be in denial.
Sometimes it's better not to know all that. So if someone wants to find The Unfinished Cross or maybe the episode or wherever you want to direct people, where would people find
I just
what
think
you want
this
to?
message in this episode is so powerful. I thank you for stepping out and creating a podcast to share such magnificent stories, because I know some of the other people you've talked to. So I know the power of what you're doing, Mark. For me, the 25th anniversary of The Unfinished Cross is going to come out this year, 25 years ago. And I felt like I needed to write what's happened in my life the last 25 years because of the book. Because the accident changed my life, Daniel's story changed my life, and then the book changed my life. And so I thought, hey, let me share what's happened because of this book. So that's coming out, The Unfinished Cross. I can't tell you exactly when, but in my webpage, I guess if you want me to give it, I will promote it at that time when it's ready.
Great.
But it's extremefocus.com. And if you go there, you're going to see a lot of stuff about sports because I am blessed to work with some of the greatest athletes. And that gives me a chance to speak to companies. It gives my chance for my books to be noticed because of my success within the sports world.
Well, you're known as one of the top coaches in the world. I mean, and the level of successes, and I remember I won't name his name unless you want to, but there was a baseball player a couple of years ago that was struggling. He was hitting like 218 and hired you. And within a month, I think he was batting 280. He went on to become like really.
He won the batting title last year. Bobby Witt Jr. We won't mention his name. Oh, did I mention his name? But
he ended up signing like the biggest contract in history.
$450 million. What a shift in. But it just shows you it's little shifts you make. That's what all I do is shift people, little shifts. But when you focus in and then you feed it, what you feed will grow. You already said it. What you starve will die. Well, how do we feed this? I'm working with a player right now, as you know, that's making baseball history again.
Right.
And it's so much fun to see, but it takes a consistency. We talk before every game because there's a lot of pressure out there. So think in lives, we have pressure every day. But if we put ourselves in that place of openness to feel God's presence every day, oh my gosh, we can handle anything.
It cracks me up too because you flew out to
Sacramento last week?
No, before that, Baltimore. Was it Baltimore?
Washington.
Washington, yeah. And they you did your game ready process with this player and another player, and they ended up scoring 17 runs that game.
Well, I was with the whole team that time because I took them to the White House experience and everything. And the next day they played the Nationals. They had 35 hits and 17 runs.
Yeah. And
it was like...
I don't get why teams aren't like, why aren't we paying this guy to do the whole team all season? I mean, it cracks me up.
They only know what they know. It's just what they know.
All right, cool. Well, thank you. We'll see you on the next episode. Like and subscribe if you like this content. You're going to get more of it. And when we talk about the next story, it's gonna shake some people up in a good way.
Awesome.